All right, hello everyone. Welcome to the Millennials Are Old podcast, where two elderly millennials, and Brian, you are now old as shit millennial, review various things that interest us, and maybe to Gen X, maybe to Boomers, maybe to even the silent generation, but we're going to review it anyways. My name is Taylor.
I'm Brian. We're going to review it all because millennials don't care who we offend.
Yes, and including we are going to ascension these millennials because we are going to review the classic 2016 album Angelic to the Core by 80s child star guy who alleged many Hollywood abuses and then later pledged later did other abuses to other people. Corey Feldman.
Friend of the pod, Corey Feldman.
Yes, he is a friend of the pod, and allegedly, we have to put allegedly on here because I will not be sued by Mr. Feldman himself. But yes, Brian, this was your suggestion for this week in our very first album. So, Brian, why did you want us to discuss this album on the podcast?
I've been reading about this album for probably nearly 10 years, but longer than it's existed. It has been in the works. This is a development hell project.
And yes, it very much has. In fact, this album was in development as early as 2006.
And so I used to follow the production of this album just at the time as like a goof and kind of a curio on the AV Club, who followed it kind of mockingly. For some context on why I picked this, the last 2 years or so, I almost entirely listened to R&B and some new metal for kicks, and then like psychedelic rock. I grew up on. I love a lot of different types of music. It's just kind of that's where I've been at, especially R&B. And then with a sprinkling of new metal for it, gets my blood pumping, and then like 60s psych rock. There's no psych rock in this. This is a wild ride of an album, and it's also a thing where I've made my share of not very good, not very well produced or performed music, and I kind of wonder listening to this. Well, if I made an R&B album, would it sound that different from this? This album I don't know that anyone's listened to this album properly when I read reviews of it, when I try to get info on it before us. To be totally, I even, because the thing I do sometimes is I listen to other podcasts after I consume our media to make sure that I have something to say. To make sure that I'm not, that, it's something I have kind of a distinct thing I can say about, stuff I just want to make sure that I'm kind of finding my own voice,
Yeah, no, I definitely did the same thing as well. And in fact, I do think that my opinion does differ fairly significantly from the consensus of this album as well.
Mine as well. And what I found is most people that talk about this album, have only listened to the first disc. I have not seen many people talk about disc 2. It's a double album. It's actually two distinct albums that are joined thematically. It's crazy ambitious.
It is. Second, it very much so. And once we get into the facts, you'll see how ambitious this fucking album is. Like, seriously.
That's kind of the crux of it. Is like, I love talking about music, and I have a lot more. I can really get my teeth in, maybe more than I can with a lot of film or literature or whatever. And this is not me trying to do some pitchfork contrarian thing. This is not an album like any other album I've heard. And this is not like, it would have been very easy for Corey Feldman, who even with his star has fallen, to say the least, he has some connections and he has some money. It's pretty easy to be a celebrity and get some competent producers to help you produce a very okay sounding, very boring R&B album with auto-tune, with Pro Tools, with how many just competent producers are. He could have done that. And it's pretty clear that this is like a visionary, like passion project. And he insisted on producing it largely by himself. It seems like he must have.
Yeah, no, it definitely seems like that as well.
Control over it.
Yes, for sure. He did get a couple people to be guest people on his album, and he also does have a backing band entirely of scantily clad women called the Angels. But other than that, it is entirely his project.
Well,
Um,
I there's I yeah I am. We'll get into the back of that stuff. There's some I have a lot to say about this album. It's a wild fucking ride, and basically I picked it because I don't think anyone's proper. Our whole thing, my thing is that I look at things that I might have a feeling about that I don't know have gotten much critical, like actual critical appraisal, good or bad.
yeah.
And I don't know if anyone's listened to this album actively ever.
No, I don't think so. I think most people listened to this just to clown on it and came into this thinking that they were going to hate it and write a bad review of it.
Just kind of like, yeah, it's a weird fucking album, and it is a mess. It's a fucking mess.
It is. And speaking of messes, let's get into some of the details because I will do this as a regular Millennials or Old review, but make it a little bit different because obviously we don't have all the details that we would for a film. Once again, this album was released in 2016, was in production as early as 2006, but it was released in January of 2016. In lieu of a rating, because of course albums are not rated like movies, I will say this album does not have a parental advisory sticker, so this is technically for all ages. It was performed by Corey Feldman and his backing band called the Angels, which are a group of scantily clad women who play instruments. The total length of the album is 95 minutes. Because this is a double album. This album's 95 minutes long, which might seem daunting. Yeah, it's a big boy double album. Like, seriously. I think it's hilarious that this album is actually longer than some of the movies we reviewed.
Well, yeah, it is. I mean, I don't want to say this album's crammed packed with ideas because there's really maybe two ideas that are disc length on it. But wow, he stretches them out.
He does, very much so. I was not able to find a production budget, but I assume it was probably low to moderately low, considering this was a passion project that took a long time.
This is so economical. This is so economical that I think fucking Steve Albini produced this.
Yeah. Oh shit, yeah, you're probably right. And as well, so I wasn't able to find any IMDb reviews because of course it's not a movie, but I did find 2 review sites on Amazon, which we will get to the Amazon reviews at the end of the episode. But on Amazon, the album has a 4.1 out of 5, which a lot of shitpost reviews, but still 4.1 out of 5. And on the website Rate Your Music, it has a 0.99 out of 5. Now those reviews were a little bit less shitposty and very much stating their opinions on the album. Now I did not go to any of those reviews. I just took the actual score from that website. And a couple trivia facts. Just, once again, not a lot of trivia for this album, but I did find a couple things. The first one, and this is probably what launched, I think, the sort of uncritical lens that a lot of reviewers of this album got from the inspiration from. But Anthony Fantano's famous 50-minute review of this album, where he forgoes his usual format and instead goes through the album track by track to snark at it, remains one of his most popular videos.
Can I just say, and I know people expect me to like him, and he seems like an alright. I don't like his reviews. I don't like his review style. He likes a lot of stuff I like, but I think for different reasons. And I'm not saying anything like I don't like Fantano. I just don't identify with him the way he.
I'm not a big fan of him either, to be honest.
I don't mean to. Okay, since we're talking about one protege of Michael Jackson, we may as well draw the comparison. You know who else? Who else is? Well, this isn't Corey Feldman's debut, but do you know another major release reveal that Fantano said was never going to make it and that people wouldn't remember?
What?
House of Balloons by The Weeknd.
He did say that.
He said, "Will never be a superstar."
Yeah.
So it's still hope for Corey.
Oh, and don't forget, he also did give My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy a 6 out of 10.
I mean, I love that album. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
I don't know if Fantano's overall take on Kanye. I think that's like a masterpiece, like record of its time. So I don't know if he's like being, 6 out of 10. I guess is whatever.
It's technically not a bad review. That's still technically a good review, but definitely very much on the precipice of a bad review.
Yeah, middling.
Yeah, very much so. Once again, this album took about 10 years to make from the years 2006. It was finally released in 2016. The working title for this album, so of course, the album is named after a track called Angelic to the Core, which is also part of a skit that goes, because there's a lot of skits in this album, and they're not, just being honest, the skits are pretty bad on this album.
Corey's right in the age range where, and that makes sense. He's coming from, so in a weird way, this album for 2016 sounds dated, but it doesn't really sound like the music that Corey Feldman would have grown up with. But the skits sound like he was growing up listening to like Fat Boys records and their skits.
Yes. And the skit basically is under the sort of based off of Charlie's Angels, essentially, and he is Charlie talking to his angels.
Oh, that's crazy! I just that. That's wild.
Yeah. And the working title for this album was Elevate or with it, number 8 or to Ascension. The number 2 Ascension.
Angelic to the Core was an improvement.
Oh, very much so.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And also, last fact, this is Corey Feldman's 5th album.
Yeah. And just for context, I did listen to a little bit of his other music. I didn't do a deep dive. I probably will someday, just for myself and my own, autism that I have, not for the pod. But I did listen to a little bit. This is better. This is better than his debut. I didn't listen to. There's a couple albums in between that I didn't listen to, but I listened to his debut, which came out in, I think, 94, right after he came out of rehab. And that album, I think, is much rougher than this one.
Well, that's the thing, is that he had to go into rehab because he had a lot of unresolved trauma. He actually saw his dog and his mom get killed by an axe-wielding, mentally and physically challenged man. So there's a reason why he went to drugs. I'll just say that.
Yeah. There's a few reasons. I don't want to be too apologetic. We'll get into this. Probably I'd like to get into this more after the review. I have complicated feelings about Corey Feldman's legacy and the impressions I have of him.
No, for sure. He's a very interesting and troubled individual, I will say that. And speaking of things that are very troubled, let's get into the tracks. So I have about a one or two sentence description for most of the songs in this album. So let's get to the opening track.
Me too. I'm excited because I also have that, and I want to compare and see how similar our one sentence descriptions are.
Yes. So the opening track is Ascension Millennium, which I tried to shoehorn a millennials are old joke in there. It was very bad. This is one of the few songs from the album I've actually heard of previously. It's also, I believe, the only song from the album that has a music video.
You are not correct. We'll get to this. There's another one, believe it or not.
Oh, really? Okay. That was the only music video of his I've seen from this album. I'll just say that. And the music video is not great. Just being honest. It's basically him being Hugh Hefner, essentially. But I will say I actually kind of like this song. I think it's a good song to start the album. I think it's one of the stronger songs on the album, so I'm glad he opened the album with it. The lyrics aren't great, and his singing is not great on it, but I think it's still one of his better songs on the album.
Yeah, I think my impression of this song is I have one word descriptions for disc 1 and disc 2. I would say disc 1 is Corey doing an MJ impression over a bad iPhone 65. And disc 2 is Corey doing an MJ impression over mediocre nu metal.
Oh, not only mediocre nu metal, but also mediocre bad butt rock.
Yeah, there's a few actual kind of ambitious, weird moments we'll get to throughout. And this particular track, Ascension Millennium, I feel like this is the first song he wrote for the album, and so it's got a pretty big hook. As far as there's a little bit more that you might call memorable in it, but it's also the first song I think he completed for the album. Because a thing that I think about this album is that the mixing on disc 1 gets better as it goes, because I think that he recorded it and made it chronologically. And so this is also one of the most difficult songs to listen to because so many of the sounds mix and bleed together, which is a thing. And as you listen to this first disc, you will gradually hear the songs becoming more listenable. So even though this is one of the better songs as far as having a hook, having it's pretty, I don't know, it's
Yeah,
got a it's
I will say I don't think it's bad at all. It's not like a great song, but I don't think it's bad. Like,
yeah, it's he heard a melody in his head and it was a pretty catchy melody and he made it.
yeah, no, for sure. I mean, this is especially if this was just like an amateur musician who was releasing something on their fucking, SoundCloud or Bandcamp or whatever, I'd be like, oh, that's interesting. Good for you. Like, that's not bad.
Like, for all intents and purposes, like, and that's part of the thing is for you, with the possible exception of all the guest appearances, it does not seem like a guy who was like pouring. I mean, he did pour all of his money in clearly, but it wasn't like he's like. I mean, he made an album that is what he wanted to make.
Yes.
This is not like a product.
No.
I got it.
But speaking of things that might be a product, let's get into the next song here, Love and Lies, which is the second track. This song sounds, in my note, this song sounds aggressively 2010. The auto-tune is so fucking bad. It's like a boring 2012 pop song or 2010 pop song, like a party jam from just some boring 2010 artist with like shitpost crunkcore hyperpop level bad auto-tune.
Yeah, the auto tune. It's also like
does this not sound like a crunkcore style auto tune?
It is. Well, it's the thing with the auto tune is that it doesn't seem like Corey actually knows how to, because you still need to put auto tune in a key, and he doesn't seem to know which key he should be putting it in. So his voice is still auto tuned out of key with the rest of the song. It's very strange. I mean, very disorienting effect that I don't think is intentional.
Yeah, no, for sure. There was this really bad like joke crunkcore band called Crunk Fuckers on YouTube. They were terrible. Don't look them up. And like that auto tune is about as good as Corey's auto tune on it, and to say quite bad.
My overall thing, like, it's funny. I think we're at the kind of the same ballpark. A lot of the songs, there are a couple songs on here that I genuinely like. There are on this first half of the album that I actually are like, oh, that's actually a song I would probably listen to. I'd probably, if I didn't know it was Corey Feldman, I'd be like, there's 3 songs on this album, I think, where I'd be like, oh, this is a cool, weird, lo-fi, little, strange pop song. This is not one of them. And in fact, a lot of the tracks on here I would describe as not that far removed from 2010's Katy Perry, Black Eyed Peas. To me, as someone who's not those artists, and it's like, yeah, this kind of is bad, but it's not to me markedly worse than those things.
No, for sure. So yes,
no,
you're all good. Next song is the title track, "Angelic to the Core," and this is also where we get the intro skit, which is once again a Charlie's Angels one, and it's bad. It is a bad skit.
These poor girls they do not want to be there.
No, they don't. And the only note that I have for this song is it's not bad. Not really anything interesting to say for me on it. It's just not bad.
Is this the one? There's this another skit where Corey says, "I'm coming, coming, coming," or is that a couple tracks down? I'm looking at my notes here.
I think it might be that one.
Well, they're all pretty similar. I'm sorry, the skits they're pretty undifferentiated by the narrative of the album. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah, no, it's they don't. One of them is like you have 3 rules, and one of them is like you have to be sexy. I think that might be this one.
And that's really, I want to tell you, the audience, what Taylor is doing. That's how Corey. That's also kind of how he sings. He's doing MJ, but it's very gravelly. He's older now than Jackson was when he recorded his trilogy of masterpieces that Feldman clearly was obsessed with. So except when he tries to, he already can't sing, much less can he not sing.
And also, I think he was almost the same age that Michael Jackson died when he recorded some of these songs.
Yeah, and then he tries to do that cool gritty throat thing that Michael Jackson would do, but it comes out like a kind of craggly, like you know how Jones's voice is really graggly now. It's kind of like that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, for
very
sure.
funny and gross sounding.
Yeah. Next song on here is Forbidden Attraction at the number 4, and it almost looked like Biden Attraction, and I'm like, I don't want to know about Biden Attraction. I really don't. And this song is and speaking of presidential candidates, or things related to presidential candidates, this song features the musician Kaya Jones. Now, Brian, are you familiar with who Kaya Jones is?
I'm not, but I do have a note about this is my first note on this. It becomes a theme throughout the album. The guests throughout this album are not beneficial to Corey because Corey, as like a DIY to me, who I've made music that was like more like it was like punk or whatever, but it's not honestly in terms of like talent and fidelity, not that far removed from this. And I enjoy music that is maybe similar to that. But when he gets a guest on here who he got on here either through paying them or pitying him or just as a lark, I don't know.
Mhm.
It really doesn't help him out because you hear this actual professional and then Corey, and then you're like, oh yeah, he doesn't know what he's doing because there's
Uh,
someone to compare him to. Um,
yes, but speaking of people who don't know what they're doing, so Kaya Jones, she was briefly a member of the Pussycat Dolls. And in 2017, she joined the National Diversity Coalition for Donald Trump as their Native American ambassador for Trump, despite having no membership or cultural involvement in any federal or state tribe.
oof,
Um,
Corey.
so she's Trump's Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah, holy shit.
And she also claimed that Pussycat Dolls were a part of a prostitution ring. So needless to say, she was not welcome to the reunion of that group.
Well, how long was she in the Pussycat Dolls? Is she like
She wasn't in there very long. She was only in there for like a year or two.
okay?
But she has claimed to have Apache heritage. But but various Native American journalists state that she has no Apache tribe claims at all. Like there's just no ancestry at all.
Oof. I mean, that's very consider. Now I feel bad for Corey. For most of the guests, I'm like, wow, this record is a blot on their history. But it turns out that I'm assuming that Corey is like good and is a Bernie bro like me, and so I'm like, oh, this is actually bad for Corey. This is a blotch on his record to have this.
Yeah, and also she's also part of the probably the most cucked demographic of all time. She is a Canadian-born Trump supporter. Those are the most cucked people on the planet.
That's so fucking funny. These fucking.
um, but yeah, no, this
Sense.
this is another like just very bad and forgettable song with a and this female vocalist, and she's just not very good, and she doesn't really add a whole lot to the song, in my opinion.
And I just want to this. Speaking of Corey's phlegmy, kind of dirty old man voice that he has when he tries to sound like kind of like do that throaty Michael Jackson.
Yeah,
This song starts with him doing very raspy, gravelly old man voice and saying, "I've been looking at you," and then
yeah,
a woman who sounds about 15 years younger than him.
yeah. I actually don't think she's yeah, I would
She's
say
probably
she's in her late 30s. She's not that young.
yeah.
But still strange.
I've been looking at you. That's hot. Uh,
But yes, oh, I'm sorry. Did you have anything else to add?
No, actually, I have kind of a nice pivot into kind of where we're at in the album at this point.
Yes,
Which is
it was the next song, "Cross the Line."
yeah. So was surprised upon listening to this album. I'm like really sitting and listening to it. There is a really genuine love of like 80s pop, and it's not really nostalgic for me. It's Michael Jackson, of course, we've said and we'll continue to say because it's holy fuck, he's trying to sing like Michael Jackson. At no point is he not. But there's also like there's
Yes.
Madonna, there's George Michael, there's Prince. Like it really is like he loves this type of music and wants to contribute something to that lineage of pop.
Yes. And yeah,
He,
speaking of, we're on now track 5, "Cross the Line," featuring John Caron and Nina Kristen. Now, John Caron has worked with several people, including Pink Floyd, The Who, and Eddie Vedder. So
This
they
is
got.
in my
But I do like this song. It actually kind of reminds me of like an acid jazz or like Jamiroquai song or something.
I said that actually. I'm looking at in my notes. I have that about this and another song. This is a pretty effective. I'm like again.
I like this song. This is actually one of my favorite songs in the album.
I like Cross the Line, and there's a couple others that we'll get to. And I also said this is, a pretty derivative but effective, swanky 70s groove. It's kind of funky, but it's a little bit sinister and a little bit kind of gritty sounding. Not it's this. I mean, it's still Corey Feldman, but it sounds a little bit moodier. And there's a couple other tracks like that. I'd say for like, and again, like this maybe was like marred by being a joke. I'm gonna say that some of these tracks, not the whole album, but a few of it, if it wasn't Corey Feldman and it was maybe just marketed differently, this could be like kind of keyed into the vaporwave thing.
No, for sure, I agree. I definitely like this song quite a bit.
Yeah, this is one of the ones I like, and this is actually a string of tracks. We're getting to the peak of the album for me in terms of the tracks I liked.
Yes. I would agree with that too. Very much so. Next song, we're talking about Michael Jackson. Speaking of bad, this song is called Bad People, which has another bad intro, another Charlie's Angel intro. And this is where I think this is like where you really, really start sounding like Michael Jackson on this song.
Oh, see, that's true. But kind of the melody and the synthesizer, and I'm not like there's some crossover here. This is like to me very much like Controversy, Dirty Mind era Prince. Like the vocals are always Michael Jackson, and I think that comes through here.
Oh,
that's kind of. I mean, there's some similarities there. It's not, you know what I mean. That's not completely alien to each other. But like this is like to me very Controversy era Prince. It doesn't sound Prince is one of the seminal geniuses of our time, and I mean, Corey Feldman doesn't have that going for him. And I want to say that this is one of the tracks, like a few others out here. Corey's lyrics are nonsense.
Yeah,
but he believes what he's fucking saying, and I'm gonna say this is the only song in here where I kind of know what he's talking about. Not that it's good, but he's talking about bad people. He's talking about people who have taken advantage of him, who have stolen his money, who have done mean stuff to him or made fun of him. He's going, those are bad people, and he means it. Everything he 100% means his fucking lyrics, and most of the time they're nonsense. But I got to give this song some credit for being about something that's discernible.
No, for sure. I didn't really care for the song too much, but yeah, it's I definitely agree with a lot of that. I'm for sure there.
I think I like it just because I like this style of like pop R&B. Not it's a very more than even like Cross the Line is relatively derivative. This is a very derivative song of its influences, but because it's a style that I like, I'm kind of like, okay, I get it. So Bad People is another, like there's almost like a string of tracks here that I really like.
Next song list here is Duh, which I would say is the first song that I actively did not like. Once again, another bad Charlie's Angels bit, and this one might be the one where he says, I'm coming, I'm coming, I'm coming.
Oh, that sounds right.
And yeah, I just had nothing to add to the song. I think the song sucks. It's just not good.
That's what everyone says, but this is still in that string where I'm like, okay, I kind of like this. This is very high. This is the most like hyper pop if we're gonna keep drawing those analogies, which is not a genre I like.
No, me neither.
This when we're talking about Corey saying nonsense, this is fucking nonsense. Duh, according to Corey Feldman, is an acronym that stands for Done Under Halo.
Oh,
and it has a couple lines here that I just want to say. One of those lines is, everybody knows that my name ain't Stacy, and I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Another line that Corey, he just declares, he's very adamant, is, I like angels. That's my thing. Duh.
That's some rough shit, let me tell you. That's, There's a reason why I didn't like that song. I'll just say that.
Abrasive. It's an abrasive song.
Yeah. Next on listed here is Everybody featuring Doc Ice. I did not like this song either.
This is one. Yeah, this is. I don't like this one. This to me is the most that it sounds like a 2010s like hit single by Katy Perry or
It,
Black Eyed Peas.
and not only that, but also Doc Ice, the rapper, is it just me or is he trying to sound like Pitbull?
Yeah, that's what I. Yeah,
Like,
very up time type of rap that sounds pretty forced.
yeah, I was expecting him to say Mr. Worldwide at some point. Like, it's just not good. Next one, listen here. Another song I fucking hated was Lickety Split.
Lickety splickety, gross.
Just awful. This is a terrible fucking song. And
It's,
the only note that I had is a really bad song, and I said I can't wait till it's over. I just hated the song. Like I just hated the song.
it makes me feel gross. I have a couple notes. First of all, Corrupt's verse, I think, and I don't know anything about Corrupt. I don't think. I thought Corrupt's verse was pretty, like actually really good. But it, again, it's like this where it's like, oh, he's actually hurting Corey by being because he, Corrupt is not like flexing on this. He's probably barely trying, but it just absolutely blows everything else happening.
It just blows him out of the water. Yeah.
Secondly, there's a little skit at the end where it's Corey and Corrupt having a quote unquote natural in the studio conversation where Corey talks like Quentin Tarantino when he's at the BET Awards. If you ever seen that footage, and it's like, Corrupt, my man, let me ask you a question. Why do people got to make up stories and lie and be rude to the Corey Feldman? And Corrupt is going, yeah, hit me. But it's so clear that Corrupt recorded a voicemail that Corey scripted for him.
Yeah.
And then Corey spliced these together. Holy shit.
Yeah, I know, right? Uh
That's all. That's it for Lickety Splickety.
No, fair enough, fair enough. Next one listed here is Go For It featuring Snoop Dogg. Now this was the other song that I had heard on television, on the internet before this album was released. In fact, the song is performed live on Good Morning America. There is a dubstep backing track throughout a lot of the album. I also actually do like this song. I think it works. I think the vocal melody is not bad. I think Snoop Dogg's verse is very phoned in, which of course he's well known for phoning in verses these days.
Yeah, for the last 25 years or whatever.
Yeah. But yes, this is one of the songs I actually do like. I think it works fairly well. Even though it is a bit of a mess, I will say.
Little bit of a split there for me. So
Okay.
and like I said, I actually like Duh because it's just insane. But this now we're getting to the first 20 minutes of Go For It have this kind of distorted guitar, this kind of lilting piano, and this ominous kind of like build, and Snoop doing like studio chatter, and you're like, oh fuck, there's Snoop, here comes the guitar, and then it's a dubstep drop, and it's just a mess, and I can't hear anything that's going on. It's just boof. And that's the song for me. And it's just like that first 20 seconds, I was like, oh, is this another banger? Am I gonna? But that would be like three tracks that I really liked on here, which would be crazy. And then it's just a mess once that drop happens.
Yeah. Yeah, it's for me it's like a so bad it's good thing. So but no, I can definitely see that opinion on it. It is, yeah, the fact that he chose this one to play on national TV is a little bizarre in my opinion, because I don't think it's one that would translate very well to television. It just doesn't. I would actually Cross the Line would probably be the best one to play on TV, or at least one of the better ones to play on TV.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So, and then the very last song on disc 1 is called Test 1, which is a song I literally don't remember anything about.
This is my favorite song of the album. No joke.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So the tracks, when I say there are 3 tracks that I think I actually like, I think are like
okay. No, I'm sorry to interrupt you real quick. Is this the one that kind of has like a New Jack Swing to it, or is that a different one?
It's a little New Jack Swing. This is the last track on the R&B album.
Okay, then I do remember this song. I do remember this one.
It's slow though, and it's minor fairy, and it's kind of similar to Cross the Line like that. It's actually kind of a dirge. And it's kind of so it's funny that you call the Cross the Line kind of like neo soul or acid jazz because that's I actually described Test One as another acid jazz song, and it's
Mhm.
like, wow, is that a thing Corey was into in the '90s? I guess he's the right age. He could have been listening to Lauryn Hill or whatever. You know,
Yeah.
that's certainly possible. And then I just didn't expect it. And you're like, oh, this is actually like it's very moody and it's slow and it sounds very contemplative and just a surprising way to end off of this album. I really like Test One, and by that I was kind of like I had heard the worst of it, and I'd been prepared for what the good stuff like Cross the Line. And again, I do like Bad People, but not in the same way.
Mhm.
But Test One and Cross the Line, I think, are really good, cool kind of R&B songs. To be honest,
Yeah, now that I'm remembering it, I will agree. I think Test One's a lot better. I think it was near the end and I was listening to 45 minutes of, not
yeah,
bad, but not super interesting. I was like, okay, this is the last song. I'm just gonna write something real quick on it.
yeah,
But no, I agree. This was the song I think of that was like New Jack Swinging and acid jazz, and I remember at least vibing to it a little bit.
yeah.
So um
Um,
but yes, so that was disc one. Do you have any other thoughts before we go on to disc two? Rock.
my thing that I would say to anyone that it wants to listen to this for the reason that I did, which is to actually hear what's going on and what kind of expression of a weird guy. I'm sorry, you're a weird guy, Corey.
Yeah, he
This
is.
is if you like music from his influences, that's Prince, Michael Jackson, George Michael, Madonna. I'd say this isn't good like that, but it is something that is trying to take that to a different place, which is what I look for in how bands channel their influences or artists. And there's three tracks in this that I would say are good that I would listen to outside of the context of a review for this podcast, and that I added to my like little like lo-fi R&B playlist that I'm always finding stuff to add to. Three. That's three. That is two more very good, solid tracks than Sean Kingston had.
Yeah, it's very true.
Sean Kingston made one of the great R&B songs of his decade, and nothing else that I care about.
Well, I think R.I.P. to Sean Kingston, who committed suicide a long time ago because he saw a
He
really hot
tried to
girl.
tell us.
Yeah,
He tried. What was that like a year ago? People were like, he's dead. And he's like, not dead. He just played at the Hawthorne Theater. I almost went to go
yeah.
see him.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You did say that. That's really all right, but yes, that is the end of disc one. Stay tuned for disc two after this commercial break.
Wow.
All right, so welcome back, everybody. Without further ado, let's get on to disc two, rock and roll.
And I forgot to mention something off the top that is maybe important to understand this album very quickly. So divided into two groups, as you know, one disc is Corey says dance. I would say it's R&B, whatever. That's disc one. Disc two is the rock and roll. I would say it's like bad alt rock or middling alt rock. Disc one is dedicated to his late friend Michael Jackson. Disc two is dedicated to his late friend Corey Haim. So they are two of the
Oh,
angels. They are because there is a thematic element that they are now angels, which is of course the aesthetic through line of the album.
oh, dude, no fucking way.
I'm dead serious. And there will be a little bit. I know there's a track specifically that we'll get to on this half of the record for CH. Pretty sweet, cute track. We'll get there.
But yeah, speaking of angels, let's get into another angel who thankfully is not fallen, is still with us. The opening track of Rock, Seamless, featuring Frederick Wilhelm Durst.
And Fred is, as we've said of previous guests, this is the ultimate example of a guest doing a feature that just shows Corey up. It's like, damn, Fred, you got to show Corey up like that because he's bringing it.
Yes, and if you want my full opinions on Seamless, listen to Cage Fight. We did an entire Fred Durst bracket. I had my opinions on Seamless in there, but I will say I do like Seamless. I think it's an enjoyable song.
Yeah, I actually think this is maybe the best song of the album in some ways. Well, I don't know. There's a few songs that said that. My general take on Angelic Rockadelic, which is the second disc, of course, is that it is much more competent and listenable to the average listener, but also a lot less interesting overall for me personally, while it's still being objectively the better of the two discs.
Yes.
Uh,
And
I
oh, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I feel like almost nobody who starts to listen to this album actually even bothers to listen to the second disc. The one in-depth review other than ours that I found, which I didn't really care for. I mean, the guys were fine. They did not even listen to this because they made it through and they thought like, well, we can listen to an album, but this the second disc is just going to be more of the same, which is not true. Um,
Yes.
if most people probably, I think, don't make it as far enough as to even get to the second disc, this would probably be something that would have had some sort of fan base if people listened to it and not Ascension Millennium first.
Yes. But speaking of very forgettable songs, the next song listed here is "Wanna Break Free" featuring Truth Movement. I did not care about the song except for the very end that just goes straight into butt rock, which I thought was hilarious.
Well, Truth is that's Corey's longtime band.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, okay.
Truth Movement are the band on his first album. I mean, Truth Movement. To be honest, if you're starting like a Prince MJ inspired R&B group, Truth Movement's a pretty good name for a band in that style.
No, very much so. Yes.
Yeah, Corey, like you had a vision.
Yeah. But yeah, next song listed here is "Negativity." And
impression. That's my note.
Yeah. Also for this song, like there's definitely some Nine Inch Nails influence on this song, I feel like.
Yep. This is an edgy song. This is an edgy song for edgy boys.
But yeah, definitely Nine Inch Nails with a lot of butt rock. That's how I would describe this song.
And I thought at least, I mean, you would know, maybe it'd be a better judge. I felt like Corey's doing a Jonathan Davis impression. Like,
yeah,
he's doing it here. He's like,
very much so. But yeah, this song, not great.
No, I mean this and Seamless are, I think, two of the ones I remember as being. Seamless is good, and I think Negativity is pretty fun, but not great. This album, there are some weird asides here though that we're going to be coming up to soon.
Yes. Speaking of, next song, "You Got Me." And honestly, this song to me, it almost sounded like the instrumental sounded like it could be on like "Danger Days" by MCR a little bit.
Oh, we're close. I said it's skate punk.
Oh, okay, yep. I can definitely see that.
Yeah, I said it was like a Bad Religion or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't really care for the song too much, but it's got a good amount of energy because in general Corey Feldman is pretty low energy on the second half of the album, but yes. I thought it was one where he actually sounded like he was trying, which I appreciated.
Well, and it is, not to state the obvious too much, I'm sure our listeners have picked up on this. This album works better for his voice because he's doing all rock instead of trying to sound like Michael fucking Jackson. So it's like there are moments when you hear them and you're like, God, if he knew that he was a bad singer and could kind of manipulate that in the way that some like classic punk singers do, you're like, oh, he could be like a weird dark Corbin Dart style weird rock vocalist. But of course, he doesn't have the self awareness to do that.
Yeah, no, for sure. So this is the song that I'm really hoping is not about Corey Feldman. "Baby's Blue Eyes." And the intro for this, Corey Feldman. Oh, I'm sorry, what was that?
You mean Corey Haim, right?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Is this the one about Corey Haim?
It's not. This is about his
thank God.
Or forget. This is actually about his literal kid.
Oh, okay, because there's a line where he says "Daddy's here," and my asshole cringed into my gut.
So this is about his literal child. It's a power ballad, is how I describe it. This is him doing an 80s power ballad for it.
That's exactly how I did it. So I am really fucking glad. And you know what, now that I think about it, now that's a ballad about a child, like his literal child, it really reminds me of Tommy Lee's ballad on that Swine Nation or whatever the fuck of Motley Crue.
Yeah. Corey Feldman's the one guy on earth who heard Swine Nation, Generation Swine, and was like, God, this is the greatest rock album. I gotta ape this.
Yeah, in the year 2016. Yeah, it's just like
See, you heard it for the first time in 2016. I was like, God damn. So I don't like this song, but it's nice that he did but it's bad power ballad. It sucks.
Yeah.
But it's
and then the other one, For My Love, is also a ballad-like song. Although this one's kind of funny because this really reminds me of if Incubus's Drive was made into a boy band song.
so much of this album, of this too, of Angelic to the Core, reminds me of Incubus. That is, I don't know, that's like the one. And then you see how he looks. He kind of looks like a Guy Fieri guy at the time, you know.
Yeah. So I thought that was funny. I'm like, am I listening to Drive by Incubus? Like, what the fuck is this? Like, this is just. And then he starts singing, and it's like, oh, it's like a boy band. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. It was very odd. Next song listed on here is "We Wanted Change," and this song fucking sucks. I hated this song.
It does suck. It does suck. And you know what it is, listeners? Hear me out. This is a late 60s Paul McCartney-esque music hall song. The types of songs that, you know, how after the Beatles broke up, John Lennon would talk about, Paul wasn't into rock and roll anymore. He wanted to make granny music, and I hated it. It made me sick. This is Corey Feldman making what John Lennon described as granny music. That dun 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 music hall shit.
Yeah, no. Yeah, but yeah, I hated the song. Next one listed here is "Take a Stand." And this is like a political song where he's like, we gotta fight the powers and live positively. And it's like, oh, come on, dude. I don't want to hear this.
A non-political political song in the tradition of Where Is the Love, or of course MJ's Heal the World, a song that's just about how politics is bad and we need to just all be good. We need to stop being bad and be good.
But yes, this song also sucks. Next song on here is next song listed on here is "Remember 222."
It's about game.
This is okay because that's hilarious because I had literally nothing to say about the song. I didn't care about the song at all.
This is my favorite song on this album because big, crunchy, dumb fucking riff, you know, it's almost like ska, right? It's like like bad ska. I hate that type of ska, that fucking Real Big Fish thing. That's kind of what it is. And I'm going to tell you what the choruses are because I actually knew that because the 222 thing is a bit of two Corey's, like nickname thing. And I knew, so I saw the title and I was like, oh, is this about him? Is this going to be a very mournful ballad that maybe I'll hate because it's a ballad, but it will, it'll maybe make me like, I can't clown out, but it's an up-tempo, like funk rocker. And I'm going to tell you what the chorus is. We did it all. We lived most people's dreams, laughed through it all. Even when folks would leave, we had a ball because we did everything. But you had to fall. At least we have our stories. We were the two Coreys. And I am not joking. Say those words out loud and get into I was like, I like Corey Feldman and Corey Haim. I mean, it's like, License to Drive and Lost Boys. It's like they're best friends. They were little kids that got fucked over and probably got raped by a bunch of monster men, Yeah. It's like, and the fact that he didn't make a mournful ballad, that he made this dumb jock rock party anthem for his best friend, it made me like this song.
Yeah, and also
License to Drive, of course.
Yeah, and something that's not nearly as sweet, but Corey Haim alleged that Charlie Sheen raped Corey Haim when he was like 14 and Charlie Sheen was like in his mid-20s. So
yeah, I mean,
and that was just one allegation. I'm sure Corey Haim got sexually assaulted a lot. I'll just say that.
I mean, I tend to, I've always felt this. I've always felt even pre all the true stuff when people would joke and it's still you still think people saying I think Corey's lying. I don't know if I think that because his stories are pretty consistent. And it's like, what do you not believe child actors are like sexually tortured by Hollywood fucking degenerates? Like, do you not think that?
And that's the thing. What makes Corey Feldman less believable than like Jeanette McCurdy or something like that?
Yeah.
Like, seriously.
You think that he looks funny? You think he has like funny like dyed hair or something, so you don't care about what he
Yeah,
says.
just because he's like an eccentric musician who's like, still has fond memories of a guy who was accused of molesting a bunch of kids. Like, I don't know, like he's just like a guy who wasn't well adjusted because he's spent his whole life being abused and in the spotlight.
Well, and the thing with I just as an aside because we're going there, and we won't spend too much time here talking about the Michael Jackson thing. And I mean, Taylor, I love Michael Jackson's music. I don't, I
I
this
like
is
Michael
not,
too. I like Michael too quite a bit.
and what Corey said about his friendship with Michael, and Corey was pretty adamant, and my theory, I have a few theories on this. I don't know. I don't want to get too into the weeds. But what Corey says is there was no sexual abuse of Michael. What hurt him that Michael did was that he felt like as he was getting older, because they were friends for a few years,
Yeah.
from and he said I could feel Michael getting bored of me, and he was my only friend. My parents couldn't be my friends. I didn't really have friends my own age. My only friend for a lot of the time was Michael Jackson. And then all of a sudden, Michael Jackson doesn't want to be my friend anymore. And he's like, and I'm what, 14, 15? And he said that was the thing that he felt like wounded him, and the abuse he suffered was that he was kind of like made to be like tossed aside by like a guy that he clearly looked up to a lot, as opposed to sexual abuse. This isn't to discount or even get into any of the other stuff, but that's what Corey says about his friendship with Michael, and I see no reason to disbelieve anything about that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And I'm mostly just joking when I talk about, Michael doing all the things that he did, because of course it was never proven in court, and a lot of the allegations just kind of fell apart. But it is definitely something that should be on the record.
Yeah, no,
So,
definitely.
but yes, so that was a song that I'm glad you had a lot more to say, because I had literally nothing to say, and I did not know the context behind that, so that makes a lot of sense.
There's one other line from that song, so it ended up on a higher note.
Mhm.
We never took things serious. That made us mysterious. And I'm just gonna say the chorus one more time, everyone. We did it all. We lived most people's dreams, laughed through it all. Even when folks would leave, we had a ball. 'Cause we did everything, but you had to fall. At least we had our stories. We were the two Corys. Thank you.
Beautiful. Bravo. Bravo.
Thank you.
But yes, let's go into something a little less meaningful. This is the song Mercy, featuring B. Howard. This one has bad auto tune, and the line just was it like "Have mercy, give me mercy" or something like that.
This one sucks.
It repeats over and over, and it's a gospel song basically. And in the middle of the song is really weird. There's like a moment where like it's not really a tempo change. It's just like they push the playback speed like 25% or something, and it gets fast for no reason, and it doesn't really work. It's just
doesn't work. It doesn't add anything. It throws off whatever groove the song had.
It just sucks. Just straight up sucks.
It kind of feels to me like Mercy is sort of sonically the answer to Disc One's Test One, but it doesn't work the way that I think Test One does.
No,
it's funeral dirge.
Yeah. And then speaking of funerals, let's put this album to rest here with the final track, Working Class Hero. One of the notes that I said was the inferior sequel to Jukebox Hero. And also, is Corey trying to sound like Leonard Cohen or Tom Waits? Like, it sounds like he's trying to do a combination of both of those.
I don't want to. I mean, he's trying to sound like John Lennon because it's a John Lennon song.
Oh, I didn't really. Was this a cover?
Yeah. So this is a pretty straightforward John Lennon cover. And this song already, and I love the album this is from. They're one of the best things Lennon ever did, and musically pretty harrowing song. Even Lennon's version of the song is kind of nonsense, and you're kind of like, what exactly? When you really analyze the lyrics, the politics of them fall apart. It makes even less sense with Corey, because in verse 2 of this song, which is, if people don't know, it's John Lennon doing Bob Dylan, so it's a very minimal acoustic guitar thing. Corey adds a little bit of his own messy textures to it, but pretty straight cover of the Lennon song. But in the John Lennon version, throughout he says you. He addresses the audience as a working class hero. In verse 2, Corey starts saying me, which to me means he's like saying like, which also means not working class. He's like saying this happened to me from the snakes in Hollywood, instead of saying he's presumably more working class than he's ever been. Audience, that this song is for you.
No, absolutely. And with
strange.
Yes, and also the song ends with Skit essentially making fun of the album. So that, but yes, that is 95 minutes of songs. And I want to get into our final opinions at the very end because I do have a couple Amazon reviews I want to read off. Now some of these are kind of long, so I'll try to trim them a little bit. But the first Amazon review is from Amazon customer. And the review title says, I went for it, and it won big time. 4 stars. I ordered 2 copies of this CD as Christmas presents. Several friends are big fans of Corey's filmography, and I knew this would be right up their alley. Needless to say, they were ecstatic when they learned of their gifts. They exclaimed such things as, no words, and seriously? Oh, yes, I was quite serious indeed. Corey demonstrates a wide range in this album. I had a hard time pinning down quite what his style was, as it seemed to change from one track to the next. Many artists lack this ability, so I was impressed. Anyway, the CDs arrived quickly, and the packaging was solid. We've had issues with holiday package thieves recently, so I was a little worried about it being swiped from my doorstep. But they seem to have missed it. Huzzah!
Well, there was a great review for the delivery.
All in all, this was a great deal. I have no regrets. Once again, 4 stars.
Pretty good. Now, for our listeners, to paint the picture of if you got this for Christmas or your birthday and you unwrapped it, the cover is Corey with what I think is a wig. He's got very long hair.
Yes.
Being either lifted out of hell or dropped into hell by 2 photoshopped angels. I think he's supposed to be being lifted out from hell by the angels, but it looks kind of more like they could just be going like, get back down there, down you go.
Yeah, no, for sure. Next review here is from Chris. And the title of his review is He Names Names in the Lyrics, 4 stars. If you listen to the lyrics carefully, especially in Go For It, he practically tells you who the Hollywood pedophiles are. It's a very Hamlet way of doing it. It took him 10 years to make this because writing confessions in code is difficult and time-consuming.
What the fuck did this guy that like obsesses over Kubrick films and like metaphors that aren't in them write this?
Imagine the guy that does that for a Corey Feldman album.
That's me. That's what this podcast
yeah.
is. That's I guess I was starting to make a joke and I realized I'm probably the closest analog to that guy in earnest.
Oh, for sure.
Damn it.
Yeah, no, that was pretty funny. Oh, shit. Next listed here is Andrew, who says, great albums have profound messages, 5 stars. And the review says, not since the Clash's Sandinistas have we seen such a disquietly provocative double album. Great albums have profound messages.
That's a great subtle shitpost joke. Because Sandinista, I mean, not a double album, but a triple album.
Oh, God. Transcendent albums reorder both our dreams and the language we use to fabricate them. Corey Feldman's Angelic to the Core is the latter. Way, way latter. In Ascension Millennium, the album's opening track and manifesto, Feldman talks of giving toys to his soul, boldly implying that the spirituality trap is an even bigger illusion than God ever was. The tone for the next 68 minutes of your life has been set. No one is getting in or out of there with any consolation for his shame. By track number 6, Bad People, Feldman uses logic to obliterate the concept of mercy. Much has been made of...
Shit, that got me.
Much has been made of Feldman's voice. how it is to Michael Jackson both paean and blood libel, homage and homicide. But that's but that is a distraction. Feldman's a death crooner, not a soul singer. In his pipes, there is pre-sleep apnea, Leonard Cohen soprano with hints of Geddy Lee and notes of Vince Neil.
Not bad. I respect this review.
Yeah.
This guy and I should be friends.
Yeah, right. And that voice belongs to a sadist for whom all he touches turns not to gold but weapons. A murderer is defined as someone who takes from you everything you have ever had and everything you ever will. But what do you call someone who does it all that and leaves you breathing? You call him Corey.
Aww. I mean, I get the feeling I like this album more than this writer, but pretty good review.
No, it's a pretty good review.
Pretty good.
And then lastly, Alex Bodacote says Corey Feldman 2, Electric Boogaloo, 5 stars. And the body of this review just says Fred Durst has a future, so you know it's going to be quality. And I think this person said it as ironic, but no, I completely fucking agree. That's when you know it's going to be good. Like, and one of the best songs ever featuring Fred Durst feature, because there's many of them, but the best one I think we all can agree is "Get Naked" by Methods of Mayhem. That is a quality song.
I don't even know the song.
For the audience at home, that song's fucking terrible, but Fred Durst is actually, I would argue, probably the best part of it.
Methods of Mayhem is a great acronym for an band because it spells mom.
Oh, you know who Methods of Mayhem are, right?
I know that name.
It is Tommy Lee from Motley Crue's new metal rap side project.
Oh, is it fun? Is it any good at all?
No. In fact, Get Naked is I'll just describe it, a very sexual assaulty song.
That sucks.
In fact, there's a line on the song, and this is probably one of the most offensive lines in a song I've heard in a while, but is, "I'm not leaving until you're sleeping on a cum stain."
So, well, okay. What is that, like a fucking... That's like an El Duce lyric. That's like the Mentors, to do a callback.
He also has the line on the song, "You're rocking my jizzy jism."
It's like a fucking pedo. It's like my jizzy jism.
Yeah. It's also a song that it's very racist, misogynist, and very rapey. It's a really bad song. I would not recommend Get Naked. Very bad song.
I don't like any of those things.
There's a reason why it lost immediately on Cage Fight when we did the Fred Durst bracket. It was
Fred.
Yes.
Fred Durst probably agreed to do the feature because he was like, I'm going to get in there and I'm going to talk to Tommy about this.
Yeah.
And I got it. He originally added a reverse that was like, Tommy Lee, this isn't cool.
But yes, that is all the reviews. So I guess we're going to save some maybe heavy material for last. Do you have anything to say about Corey Feldman's accusations and people who have accused Corey Feldman?
I mean, not a lot. There isn't a whole lot of info about them. They're pretty, and I tried to do the due diligence of research on what was out. As far as I could find, and this might be outdated, nothing had come to trial, or at least hadn't manifested beyond accusations. They're by his group, right?
Yeah, they're by the Angels, yes.
Now, as far as I could tell, correct me if I'm wrong, and this is not to negate what they say. These weren't sexual abuse allegations, right? I think they seemed to what I found had more to do with work conditions, with not being paid, with not getting to sleep and things, with bad work conditions. But I wasn't sure if there was something I was missing, because it was actually kind of hard to find. For me, it was hard to find details on the specifics. What was kind of eerie to me.
Yeah, so just to be clear, it wasn't like there's not accusations that he raped anybody. There was accusations that there was sexual harassment, which I'm not going to say is good, but it's and apparently
be honest, some of those skits on this record, that's not hard to believe.
Yeah, like the way I would describe it is he'd probably be like the creepy boss who like back in the 80s or whatever be like, hey, nice tits, darling, like that kind of harassment type
which
shit.
sucks, which sucks, and it's a piece of shit. They do. Most actually, what I had saw that got me thinking was the stuff that some of them had said about work conditions that seem to be related to salary, to being overworked, or to being like inconsistent pay or not getting paid. And what really kind of stuck in my head as I thought about it was how much of that is stuff that happens to child actors. And what we know about forms of abuse is that abuse begets abuse, and that the first type of abuse is often the one that, in some weird way down the line, years later, gets repeated. And it just, I'm not negating. I'm actually thinking like that sounds, plausible and maybe even likely to me. The sexual harassment thing, especially when I look at just these skits, doesn't seem out of place at all, to be honest. Unfortunately, just lots of gross kind of like a grosser Austin Powers type joke, or like Tim Meadows as the ladies' man, but way grosser is what the skits kind of are. And
Yeah.
and
And also
but
also the way I would delineate between what Corey Feldman has accused other people and what other people have accused Corey Feldman is what Corey is accusing are criminal and what people have accused Corey is more civil, if that makes sense. Like
yeah, yes,
if
absolutely,
if somebody were to take Corey to trial, they would sue Corey. They probably wouldn't be able to do any criminal filing
yeah.
against Corey. Which doesn't
Um,
necessarily make it good or bad, but it is definitely a different. Like it is
yeah.
definitely different.
And I guess like what I think is like and this isn't actually, I don't have anything to because I don't fucking know. I don't know any of these people. It doesn't sound hard for me to believe, and it's especially if because I already said I believe Corey when he talks about things that happened to him. So I have no reason to disbelieve these women. If based on that, um,
No, me neither. I fully believe Corey when he talks about his childhood abuse.
and because I believe in him with that, I kind of have to be like, yeah, I can see, especially being someone that believes that abuse tends to result, not tends to, lots of people get abused and they don't abuse. I shouldn't say it like that. The things that they're saying he did sound kind of pretty similar to, in their specifics, what little there are of them, to things that he says happened to him, as far as the work relation things. Um, and I guess that makes me kind of think in a really sad way. I don't know, like things about it make sense. But again, I don't know any of these people. I'm not a fucking lawyer. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not a
Yeah.
psychologist.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things where we can only speculate based on accusations and based off of the spurious amount of investigation that various police agencies have done into these allegations. But the way I would describe Corey Feldman, and I think a lot of people who have reviewed this album and have talked about Corey Feldman as just being like kind of a weird, eccentric guy that people can kind of like shit on because he was a child star who was an addict at one point and has frankly done some pretty desperate things to get money in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Is I think a lot of people never gave this album a chance just because he's Corey Feldman and he's a goofball and a fuck up. But I will say to the people at home who have heard this album is bad, have seen Anthony Mellon's review, have seen other sort of like very not super in depth reviews of this album track by track. I think
Fast
if
sort of.
you I think if you gave this album a chance, you might like more songs on it than you think. And I think it's an
Well,
extremely interesting album, like straight up,
and
very interesting album.
I think that there are even if okay, because most songs on here, there might not even be full a lot. There aren't that many full songs that I like. There's three, and one of them is that's kind of like, and there's two that I would say would show other people and say I think are good. Um, and then like all of this too. The rock half is pretty competent, but there's full of interesting moments on it. And there's full of kind of cool sounding moments and moments with ideas. There really are. Um, my final thought on this, I'm just going to read right from my notes. It's not going to take long. Disc two, the Rockadelic half, is objectively better than disc one. But overall, I like disc one more. That is, of course, the dance track, the Funkadelic half. I feel more engaged. because I love seeing how creative people try to reach outside ambitions under strong limitations. And I honestly just think the songs are more memorable, even though they're less competent. There's more going on, I think, as far as dynamics or attempts at dynamics in the Funkadelic first half and the Rockadelic second half. Disc 2 sounds kind of like an also ran's 2000s, butt rock, radio rock band fronted by a goofy, eccentric singer. The music sounds better, but only at times begins to approach the manic altruism of disc 1, is what I wrote.
Honestly, I don't disagree with a single thing on there, and I will agree with you that I personally think that disc 1 is quite a bit better than disc 2. At least I think it's more listenable, and I think there's more quality on disc 1 than disc 2 in regards to the song. I think the songwriting is better on disc 1. I know that's kind of a funny thing to say. And even though the production may not be as good, I think disc 1 is also more like diverse in regards to its influences than disc
I think so.
Because disc 2 is basically all nu metal and butt rock with like tinges of ballads, which to be fair, ballads are basically butt rock, but and then those gospels in like political song, and then of course the cover. But yeah, for sure, I think that disc 1 is I would much rather listen to disc 1 than disc 2 on a normal day. I just would.
I feel like you can tell that that's where Corey's influences musically are. That's the album he wanted to make. He wants to be in that lineage of, Madonna, George Michael. I just wanted to list some other influences that I think are prominent besides Prince and MJ, because I've driven those into the ground. And that's, even though that's the weirder album, that really is, I think, a pretty engaging album, even when it's weird. Like I said, I like the song Dell, which is an abrasive, annoying song, because I do feel really engaged in it when I listen to it. Yeah. Which I can't really say for anything on disc 2 except for Remember 222, because it's so cute,
Yeah, like at least for me, the only songs this album that I really liked and actually would recommend, definitely Cross the Line. That's probably my single favorite song in the album. I just think it sounds really good.
Agreed. Well, maybe Test One. Those two are pretty neck and neck for me.
Yeah, very much so. Seamless, which is the song that I already reviewed for Cage Fight once again, but it's got Fred Durst. There's like just nothing not to like about it for me. Like it's just like
a album, you get Fred on it, he's gonna kill it for a nu metal song. Like he always will.
And then I also think Essential Millennium and Go For It have elements of them that I like, but I can't quite say they're like amazing songs or anything like that.
I mean, I would agree. I Cross the Line and Test One, I would show to people that like vaporwave. I would say like, hey, check these songs out, and maybe not tell them it's Corey Feldman.
Yeah,
and I'd be interested in seeing the response.
Yeah, like, if you were to put Cross the Line on like a 2009 compilation of EDM and not tell people it was a Corey Feldman song, people would probably jam to it unironically.
Well, and this guy is miles ahead, more talented and visionary than Corey Feldman. But it made me think at times of this guy Swamp Dogg, a lo-fi R&B artist who's been writing, producing, making all the film music for like the last 50 years. Mm-hmm. And is kind of an outsider R&B artist. And I was like, oh, like the best moments of this, specifically Cross the Line and Test One, and maybe Bad People to me. It's like, it's almost like, oh, like this is kind of like if Swamp Dogg grew up in the 80s.
Yeah. All right. But yes, with all that, it's definitely my bedtime. So, Brian, do you have anything else to add before we end recording here?
No, I really feel like this is kind of a pivotal episode for me on the podcast. I've kind of got to branch out into, getting into the weeds about a project's influences and its different dynamics and, kind of the cultural context of it. And thank you for doing this with me. I'm very excited to have gotten to talk about this album in this way, because I don't know if anyone else has.
No, me too. And I'm very excited to have finally given this full album a chance, because like I said, I've heard like two or three total songs before listening to it. And I'm glad that we're finally giving, I think, the album the credit that it deserves, bring a weird eclectic masterpiece, if you will.
It is like a statement for sure, which
yes,
is not always easy to make.
No, for sure, absolutely. But But yes, this will be Taylor signing off. Have a good night, everybody.
Yeah, this is Brian. Thank you. I am an old man and I need to get ready for bed.
Yes, as an extremely old millennial, I need to go to bed and wake up for the early bird special. So have a good one, everybody. Bye bye.